Welcome to Satancast.
The only podcast. That's it. There's no.
That's it. Okay. Did you cue theme music with Satan and?
Oh no! Wait, hold on. I have got. This is our theme music. No, it's the wrong one. There we go.
If I hear this one more time, I'm going to kill myself.
I hate that so much. It's a Brandenburg Concerto.
Do you think Bach feels good about himself?
I don't know. Well, he's dead. He can't feel anything. But when it comes to that,
yeah,
they should have used just a couple songs instead of just that one, all like over and over again.
Well, they've gotten better.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, for those who don't know, the Brandenburg Concerto No. 5 is the intro song par excellence of the Teaching Company, a.k.a. The Great Courses. I don't know why they changed their name.
I don't know. It's probably some.
Did they get sued?
Yeah. Why else would they do it?
By who?
I don't know. Some other company.
The
that
Great
teaches
Courses. Yeah.
Some fucking. It's probably some rich Arab.
But if you've heard, like, I don't know, if you listen to 30 lectures, you've heard the Brandenburg Concerto No. 5 30 times. And now what if you've listened to 30 lectures in a day and listened to 1,000 lectures in a year? You've heard that fucking...
Well, like just the big history course alone has, I think, 48 lectures.
Yeah.
So it's in 24 hours worth of material. So that's 48 times that you've heard that little bit of music over and over again.
Yeah.
It's just enough to drive you fucking insane.
Did you? So you finished the whole thing?
Yeah.
Nice.
I also read the book and
Bill Bryson. The short history of, or brief history of nearly everything. That one.
Yeah.
You listened to it, or you read it?
Okay, so I read one short history. It's in Lazarus Room, the one that you gave me.
Bertrand Russell?
No.
Of Progress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That one was really good. The one thing I didn't like about it, or his like weakest argument, is the Rapa Nui one, because there's this documentary, and they said that it wasn't necessarily that they died off because of that. They could have just been as easily as they just
Easter
left.
Island folks?
Yeah.
Okay.
It could have been just as easily that they left, because there's like archaeological evidence that doesn't like where they looked into the bones. Mm-hmm. There wasn't sign of like malnutrition. There wasn't sign of death from wars or any of that. So it's more likely that they just like instead of dying off, they just kind of.
Or maybe some people escaped via boat.
Yeah.
I mean, they're seafaring cultures, like Polynesians and everybody in the Pacific Ocean. That they're amazing shipmen. So like, I don't know, maybe some died, but yeah, it sounds like a myth of like. Some sort of, like, myth that we like to tell ourselves that, we will... I mean, and inevitably it will happen. But, you cut down all the trees on the island, and then there are no more you can't make boats anymore because you used all these logs as rollers to, like, set up these pillars of gods. I don't know. To me, it sounds like a myth told by... scientific rationalists to be like, look at this stupidity. If you like practice religion, you will end up killing yourself.
And like another thing that they tend to do is belittle ancient cultures.
Oh yeah.
To a point where they're like, look at these primitives, and you're like, why would you say that? Like, just because they're not you?
Yeah.
That's really the only reason I can think of, because no one would be that stupid.
Right.
Like, they made so many of those, like, Easter Island heads
Mm-hmm.
that if they made one or two less, there wouldn't be, a difference. Like, they wouldn't just keep pushing it till they got rid of all the trees.
Yeah.
So clearly must have been something else.
Yeah, natural disaster. I mean, I don't know the dates exactly. I don't really know much about the subject, so I shouldn't be talking shit. But to me, it's too facile. Like it works too easily as a textbook example of, driving the apple cart off the cliff, as McKenna puts it.
Yeah, and it's just a really fantastical explanation. Mm-hmm. It's way too something that you would write a story about to make interesting,
right?
Than the reality, which is much more banal. They just left or something.
Yeah, I mean the island was not fertile, and they just fucked off, and who knows? Maybe a tsunami wiped everything out.
Yeah, or it could have been that island was just specifically a religious island for them.
Yeah,
they just
there would have been trees at some point. But,
yeah, of course.
But there just weren't any.
Or they just realized, this island is too small for us.
Right.
And we're a much bigger tribe now, so let's just set off, because clearly there's not enough here for us.
Yeah.
However, it does work as a analogy to his greater point of, we gotta be careful with the resources and stuff.
Yeah.
But then was it Professor Christian?
Perhaps I don't.
It was Professor Christian in the big history course,
mm-hmm.
where he says that what if the end outcome is we're doing everything we're supposed to be doing?
Oh, is this in the kind of last couple of lectures?
Yes, where he postulates the possibilities of the course for the future,
right?
Where it's just we've monopolized energy in the biosphere.
Yeah.
And so it's natural that we just it runs its course, right? Whatever that means. If that means extinction for us, mm-hmm. then so be it. We're not some godly destined race for whatever.
Yeah, for transhumanism and divinity. And I don't know. Who knows? Because
one person can't control the whole globe.
Yeah.
It's just impossible.
Yeah.
And they shouldn't then. It's just human nature that controls it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't really... I'm a historian. I never really look at the future. I was surprised that he would actually even do that. Although I'm pretty sure he prefaces himself saying, I'm a historian, and historians aren't supposed to look at the future, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Oh, without a doubt, yeah. Well, because if you do 24 hours worth of content on a topic about history, and you're supposed to go okay, I'm just going to hypothesize, but here's what I think.
Yeah.
Right? Because it gives you some, here's what a person thoroughly versed in history can kind of expound on.
Yeah, what they make an educated guess. And they should. Those are the people who see patterns in history ought to be the people telling people what the future is like. I told my folks yesterday, they were denying the fact that revolution in our system is inevitable. And I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean what do you mean you don't think that something's going to happen? There is embedded in capitalism a failure. The Marxist apocalypse, where all of the capital has been accumulated to the top of the summit, and the starving people in the streets won't take it anymore. And it's happened with the Russian Revolution, the French Revolution, the American Revolution. Even if you go back to the Roman Revolution, you just have people fed up with starving and cutting some heads off. So to assume that won't happen anymore is pure silliness.
Well, no, it should happen too. Why not?
Right. The problem now is that everything is delocalized, and you can't just go to the palace. You know, you can't march up to Versailles and storm La Bastille and cut people's heads off because everybody lives, you know, in little islands in the Pacific and have Swiss bank accounts and like 5 mansions on 5 different continents.
It's really weird though. Like in Serbia, or if you go to the poorer places, you still view that as a possibility simply because it requires a large amount of infrastructure to be that delocalized.
Right.
So here, I can't go bust heads or do shit.
Right.
To like if I get a parking ticket, right?
Yeah.
But like say in Serbia,
you want to.
Yeah, but you want to, right? You want to fight whatever entity like that is.
Yeah.
But if you go in like Serbia when we're not a part of the union and all that, you quickly realize like I know where these assholes are.
Yeah.
Like if I really wanted to do something, a bunch of us can get together and storm the building and burn it down.
But they're not, I mean, they might be the richest folks in Serbia.
Right.
But they're not the corporate, you know, plutocrats who are running the show.
Yes, but as far as it goes up that ladder, this is as far as you need to get, right?
But that won't change anything. That'll just get people's hands bloody.
No. It's a weird thing because in one way it does change things. In the poor places, money is used, but it's still very much trading and favor based.
Yeah.
So like you come over to my place and you do my kitchen, and I'll fix your car. Because we both have some sort of trade,
right.
Like that.
Then I'll fuck your wife.
Yeah, but like something like that,
drink
right?
Your rakia.
Yeah. But like that exists as a form of barter because there's no money because everyone's poor, and so in places where there's even less money is used for very specific things. It's used for stuff like, I guess, food, material things are kind of iffy.
Yeah.
Because like if I own I guess I'm trying to say money's in the background,
right?
Not necessarily in the foray.
Because there isn't an abundance of it,
right?
I mean, you look here and everything's so fucking expensive, but that's because people have the money to piss away on stupid stuff. So they're more likely to do it. Whereas over there, they're like, well, money's tight, so I can offer you a service instead. That's Bitcoin is making big ground in that regard, like in Africa, where, you know, local currency isn't available to people, so they just invented a currency out of nowhere. And there are, even in America, there are towns that have their own local currencies, and people just agree to use those currencies, and it encourages local spending, and the local economy grows. And so, I mean, power to them. But...
And it seems to be like that will just keep on happening. We will just invent new ways because we figure out, well, what is money? Agreement, right?
Yes.
And
it's a social contract.
And if it's a social contract, why can't we make our own social contract?
Yeah, and we can. There's nothing stopping us. It's just that we are told to value the social contract that's already been made for us.
Yeah, and another thing too, I noticed. So like the Western ideals, everyone holds as like the golden ideals. So like in Serbia again, they try to have a gay pride parade.
Right.
And now in Canada, when we have pride, it's very much like, oh, it's just a big party and everyone gets to drink outside.
Right.
But you don't really give a shit about homosexuals. Like, it's not about them anymore. It's about, like, let's just have a big party type of thing, right?
Well, unless you're gay, in which case it's a big deal to be able to get out in the streets. And...
Well, yeah, but they're not ostracized either way if they're gay or straight, just because by, like...
Here in Toronto.
Yeah.
Because we're fortunate.
Right. But if the law caught you trying to ostracize them, they will... fuck you for it.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you don't get it. Like, you have to be politically correct because we live in such a high density city, right?
There are no gay people in Iran.
Yeah, exactly. But like over there for them, they're actually fighting for their rights.
Yes.
And the weird thing is the way that they go about it. Because they view what we do here and in like the States.
What, dressing up with a strap on and a gimp mask?
Well, over there
they don't do that, right?
No, like they don't do that because it's not at that point yet.
Right.
But if they could, I'm sure they would. Why not?
Well, not everybody.
Right. Yeah. But the point being was that they are actually fighting for rights, but they're not fighting. But the way that they're doing it isn't suitable to the culture they're in. It's suitable to Western culture, but like.
So what are they doing? Like just having small.
So they're having
30-man parades.
Well, the government enforced the parade, and the parade is surrounded by cops.
Yeah.
And the parade is like 15 people, or whoever dares come out.
Yeah.
Right? Which is like the Western way of doing things. But like Dostoevsky said, Slavic people, they're their own culture.
Mm-hmm.
And by that, like, same thing, they should be looking to do it their own way.
Okay.
Not the way of the West.
Okay, so they shouldn't be rallying in the streets and getting armies of cops to defend.
Right, because then it turns into not a thing about rights, but it turns like
in your face-ism.
Yeah, because now the government can do what it wants and it can enforce what it wants.
Oh, so it becomes like the government is telling me how to live my life. Now I have to accept homosexuals.
Yes, because now the government is like telling me accept these people for who they are and all that.
Because they want to get into the UN, and most people don't give a shit.
Exactly.
So then, what's the healthy solution then? I mean, because obviously gays there are having a really shitty time, and especially in Russia.
Well, right, but the solution is then figure out a way to become or to just view them as natural instead of an enforcement by law.
Right. So they should have a thriving underground and have people come to the underground until the underground is too big to contain, or
however it works. Like I'm sure that's one way. There's many ways of doing it.
That
right?
works for music, right?
Right.
Look at let's draw an analogy between heavy metal and homosexuals. It started out as a small underground thing, and as the club grows bigger, it starts to burst at the seams, and then it gets gentrified. Century Media Nuclear Blast want in, and so they come in and they rape the culture, and then package it and process it and spit it back out. So, I mean, gays could probably learn a thing or two from underground music, but musicians were never persecuted. That's the difference. They just weren't. They were unpopular, and now it is popular. Whereas there's a difference between that and being being persecuted and trying to become unpersecuted.
But do you think the earliest metal musicians weren't viewed as like?
Well, I mean, half of them were homosexuals.
Right. But I mean, as far as just the music went, you don't think that when people first heard it, they were trying to repress it?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely get the cases where, Slayer is called to the Supreme Court, or Dee Snider has to read before Congress, or these kinds of things. So, in that sense, I guess it was suppressed. But that was that was all part of the whole neoconservative backlash against 1960s radical liberalism and the hippie counterculture and all this. 70s and 80s is neoconservative, or as Rick Roderick calls them, paleoconservatives.
Right.
The paleoconservative reaction to what is it, the Reaganification of America. America's pretty liberal poppin' place in the 60s, and then you head back into the 80s, and it's just like radical right-wing conservatism takes over. And attacking heavy metal was one way for that party to gain solidarity and get votes from concerned Christian parents and Bible Belt fundamentalists who don't want their kids exposed to Venom and Megadeth. So,
well, yeah, and in the same way, it's like it would work for them. I'm guessing.
But what they did was they just went to these places and showed them that they were all full of shit. That the accusations they were hurling were wrong, and that they weren't Satanists. They weren't this and that. They weren't what they were being accused of. Whereas for a homosexual, you're being accused of something that you actually are doing.
But
so it's a matter of changing people's perceptions, not telling them that they're wrong. You know what I mean?
But in the same way, because most of these countries that repress them are extremely religiously conservative, or just even culturally conservative, it's that same idea of like, I'm not evil, okay, because your God says so or whatever.
Okay.
You've got to...
Okay, so you're right. So it is like, I'm not a Satanist.
Right.
In the same sense. It's like, okay, yes, I am a homosexual, but I'm not evil. I'm not evil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's that same like cycle, right?
That's fair.
Because I think these places that kind of, I wouldn't even say got left behind, but it's just kept the old ways.
They're just as modern as we are.
Right.
They just don't believe what we believe. I hate that shit. When people say that people are medieval or backward or back in time or something like that, I'm like, no, they're just as modern as you are. They're just different. Don't be a prick. This isn't about progress. This is about like values, and different people have different values.
Yeah, and in a way you need that too, right? Because you need those people to retain the past.
Yeah.
And then you need the other side of the people to like look toward possible futures.
Yeah. Yeah, I always say conservatism is a group of wacky idealists looking back to a past that never existed. And liberals are wacky idealists looking towards a golden future that won't ever exist.
Exactly.
And yet nobody is really concerned with the present and what's actually in front of them. It's all about idealism. That's why politics is not my spiel. Oh, especially if you're looking at it in a dichotomized binary way like that.
Yeah, and that's because it's easier.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like,
we navigate through contradictions and dichotomies when you want to like explain something. You usually say like, is it A or is it B? Is it C or is it D? Well, it's like, well, you're the one who's putting it into these false dichotomies. Don't look at me. I didn't. That's why I hate hypothetical situations. And people spring hypotheticals on you, and they're like, well, given this scenario, would you do this or that? And it's like, well, there's a lot of variables you're leaving out. And
yeah, there's still no context. You're asking questions in a vacuum, which is impossible.
But everything, like firefighter acceptance, or like doctor acceptance, like psychological reviews of potential firefighters or doctors or police officers or whatever. That's how they test for that shit.
Oh, no, I know. Trust me. I know.
That's how they test for that shit. They're like, okay, this is a hypothetical situation. What do you do? And it's like, if you appear too soft, we're not going to hire you. And if you appear too heartless and cold, we're not going to hire you. So you better get that nice, warm middle ground.
Yeah, and that's all it is. And it doesn't even become what you would do or how you would answer, but it's like, I'm not thinking, how do you want me to answer? Mm-hmm. Which is just, what's the point then?
Right. Yeah. What do you want me to say? I remember getting a 60 in a criminology course, I think in first or second year at Guelph, and it was like that. It was like, what? This is a perfectly rationally well-organized thought, and And he's like, yes, but it's not what I wanted you to say. And it's just like, well, fuck.
See, that's why I should have gone with classics instead of philosophy in university.
Yeah.
Because my classics marks are fucking, oh my god, superb.
Mm-hmm.
But then in philosophy, I'll write the same essay for 2 classes, and in one I'll get a 90 and the other I'll get a 60.
Yeah.
And then I'm left wondering, well, what can I do to fix my work? Like...
Well, the problem with classics is that you can get good, everybody can get good grades in a mythology or a civ course. It's expected that you do. It's a different scenario when you're, getting tested on reading Homer in ancient Greek, or, getting drilled on deponent verbs in Latin, or this and that. That's where the people lose marks.
Right, but that almost seems more fun than,
oh, yeah.
logic chopping.
Oh, yeah, it's just as hard as logic.
Yeah.
It's just learning languages, right? And then regurgitating them.
Because logic is like, prove this vacuous generalization. Okay.
Socrates is a man.
All
men are mortals.
Yes.
Therefore, Socrates is immortal. Now, tell me this using X's and Y's, because it looks deeper that way.
And then you go, okay, check mark. It's like, so I got it right? Yes. You got philosophy right.
You win.
Yeah, you didn't even ask a question, but you sure proved it right.
It's funny that all good philosophy is not actually shit you learn in school. Like, philosophy is something you live. You're not gonna fucking read it in a book. I mean, obviously the books help, and the people who wrote those books lived wonderfully rich philosophical lives. But the idea that it's like everything has to be broken down to like logic chopping and numbers and letters and axioms, that's not for me.
And just like
that's not the love of wisdom. That's the love of fucking math.
And and that's all it is.
And there's nothing wrong with loving math. Just don't mistake it for loving wisdom.
I had this teacher, and she taught me a couple courses, and like she was an alright woman as a person,
mm-hmm.
but she spent her whole life just doing like Leibniz and like Spinoza, and like, okay, well, first of all, those texts are written abysmally because they were written in a time when they're trying to reconcile why mind and body are separate and distinct, but yet they still interact with each other,
mm-hmm.
without letting go of the premise that they're distinct. So they have to be 2 separate things, but then
you mean that they aren't distinct?
No, because that's the actual truth, right?
Yes.
But they live in a time where Christians...
Cartesian dualism. Yeah.
Reigns supreme. So they spent all of their time trying to reconcile how do mind and body interact if they can't interact because they're 2 different things.
Yeah.
Right? It's how does the soul touch the body if it can't?
Yeah.
And then they write novels about this shit, and it's just infinitely complex because it's just like going backwards and forwards, and like, what if God makes like 2 timelines, and then those timelines interact exactly at each moment,
mm-hmm.
so that way the soul and the body are doing the exact same thing that they should be doing. Well, then is there free will and just stuff like that?
Yeah.
And but that's tangential, but she spent her whole life just tearing apart sentences in this, like, one book.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how did you sit here for years?
That's academia. I mean, you gotta find, a fragment of Heraclitus and spend, like, 30 years on, like, 7 words saying, like, this... For all we fucking know, Heraclitus could have written, like, A Farewell to Arms or something. Or, like, he could have written, like, 1,000,000 scrolls and had scriptoriums copying out all of his work. But all we have is a couple of fragments, and we presume to know what he actually believed from those little fragments. But it's through people fucking around, picking at it, breaking down each individual word and saying, this is a middle verb, or this is therefore the action is received by the person doing the verb, but it can also be active. He's probably doing it to itself. It's very convoluted and, if you ask me, frankly, myopic and boring.
Well, that is certainly a side of academia, but there's also the other side of it too, where people are trying to make even though it might not be how you say specific, but they paint broad pictures that the imagination can really find off of.
I mean, people in academia are smart as fuck. They can, but they usually don't. I mean, if you're in a first or second year introductory course, you'll get all those spiels, but once you start pushing into the details, it just becomes hair splitting. And it doesn't matter what subject you get into. It's biology, chemistry, whatever. I mean, you have to hair split. That's how we make progress. But I think it's that deconstructionalism that's so pervasive in science. To understand an atom, you have to rip it apart and smash it and look at it. Or to understand a cow or a frog, you have to cut it open and rip out its organs and look at how those work. We take that scientific approach of ripping everything apart and apply it to language or philosophy or whatever in an attempt to make our disciplines seem more scientific than they actually are. And, social science, psychology, all that stuff, it's all great, but it doesn't have to pretend to be real empirical science. Because half the time, it's fucking not.
But so that kind of coincides with what I was arguing, is that academia then becomes business.
Yeah.
Universities become how to get the job in the field instead of just delving in the field. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, I know.
So yeah, and that's kind of the strife that I have with it.
Yeah.
Is because why not let me work on this and then just pay me, or let me teach it or whatever, but instead you want me to do it in such a way that this will generate currency.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, butts and seats.
Right.
But the thing is, what gets butts and seats? It's the traditional material. Philosophers and classicists are not supposed to be groundbreakers. They're not supposed to, tread new territory. They're supposed to keep old dead people alive. And there's not much room. And there's been kind of progress in domains of critical theory and those types of, feminist theory, Marxist theory, these kinds of things. There's been advances in terms of, okay, we're going to take a specific perspective and we're going to milk the shit out of this perspective. And new work gets made that way. You get new books like Women in Homer, or the class struggle and the Roman Revolution and things like that. And that drives the field forward. But you've got to catch that wave. You've got to see that wave coming, and you've got to start playing the game the way they want you to play it, or you're gonna get left behind.
Well, it's true insofar as university work and stuff good, but I also think there's the other way of you write for yourself, you do things for yourself, then if it gets recognized, it does. If not,
the thing is, for those people, they usually only get recognized after they're dead.
Right.
The William Blakes and the Friedrich Nietzsches of the world, or Herman Melville or whatever. These are all people who wrote, outside of the university.
For themselves. And those are the ones that get and it's not...
They die paupers.
Yeah.
But who cares? I mean, you have to make a living. That's the thing. It's got to make a living somehow, and usually you're not at liberty to write national epics or whatever unless you have that scholarly leisure, which comes from, having a rich daddy, or just having the ability to sit around and philosophize or whatnot. That's not available to everybody. But if you get paid to do it, then certainly the power is all yours. But nobody's going to fund you if you're not tooting their horn.
Yeah.
But tenure is there for that reason, too. I mean, there are people... The thing is, they try to give tenure to the people who aren't going to get their university in trouble.
Yeah, that's such a shame. Yeah, it's so weird because you'd think these people would be smart and nurture the complete opposite of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it just always...
Well, you're not going to give somebody the right to not get fired who you think probably should get fired at some point.
Well, no, if they're inciting hate or whatever, get rid of them.
Yeah.
But if they're just completely here, how about this? And then they're defending it and at least trying something new, that should be encouraged, not suppressed.
No, you're right. It should be. Depending on what it is. I mean, right now, obviously, psychedelics is the big thing, right? So, you can say, those crazy drug-addled weirdos, what do they know? And it's well, then try it. Try it. You're a tenured professor of a philosophy department and you've been wrestling with these ontological questions your whole life. Well, put your money where your mouth is. Let's go. This will only take 8 hours.
Imagine how scary that would be. You spend 30 years or whatever.
Yeah.
And you're just doing that, and then some punk ass kitty comes up to you and he goes, okay, just ask him for 8 hours, just ask him for one night.
Yeah.
And then 30 years...
I'm not gonna fuck you.
Yeah. And then 30 years of just whatever you were doing just completely, evaporated within 8 hours. And
that arguably happened to... And this is not a mechanic. It happened to him. He was on Hawaii, and if I'm not mistaken, he did only something like 4 grams of psilocybin with an MAO inhibitor.
Right.
And, he went from his whole optimistic, there is meaning in everything, and everything, reeks of meaning, to, there is no meaning, I was wrong, it's all wrong, and then he felt like his whole rap was a lie. And that happened in 1994, and, some people, after that, he didn't take psychedelics very often, at least not mushrooms. And he decided that he would, he would still give his raps, but he didn't really believe in them. His post-94 raps, he doesn't believe in the stuff that he's saying, where as much as he does in the 80s. But, so some people, they found that out and they get pissed. They're just what? It's all a sham? You lied. And it's dude, if you were convinced by it while he was telling it to you, then there's probably some kernel of truth there. And for all of that stuff to be real anyways, you have to start with the premise that it's all a lie and that everything is meaningless to begin with. So, I don't know why people get really butthurt, but he is a type of person who had a lot of sort of preconceived the universal attractor at the end of time, and the syntactical format of trips and all of this stuff. He eventually kind of just denied it all because he had an experience that fucked him up. So it can happen to anybody, even
right.
Somebody who's tripped 100,000 times. But yeah, giving it to a university professor, tenured 75-year-old, a scholar of Wittgenstein or something, he'd probably appreciate it.
Oh, totally. Oh, man, without a doubt. He'd get what Wittgenstein was trying to say the whole time.
Yeah. He'd probably just rip out the last page of the Tractatus and burn the rest of the book.
Yeah, exactly. you just take 0.7 and you need nothing else.
Yeah. I get it. No, you don't get it.
But it's weird because even with the McKenna thing, that is the beauty of it.
Yeah.
Is that even if you get to that point and then it just flips it on you again,
Mm-hmm.
there's still, what more could you ask for, really?
Yeah.
Well,
that's the thing too. Is like meaning it's like a vacuum, right? Like if you feel there is no meaning, meaning will find you eventually. And if you feel that there is meaning, then the vacuum will find you. It just depends where you are on that side of at that side of the question. And like if you don't believe in meaning or value, then eventually it will hit you. And if you do believe in it really strongly, it will eventually dawn on you that all is meaningless.
And that's just the whirling wheel. Like, it's, you'll be in that realm for a time, and you'll come back to the other, like realm for a time.
Yeah.
And as long as you're alive, you just go back and forth, and then you die. And it's really like...
Right. And it's like Blake says, without contraries, there's no progression.
Yeah.
Attraction and repulsion, good and evil, reason and energy, all of those things, they have to be balanced, and you have to go, for one to exist, the opposite has to also exist. So, yeah.
And it's weird because like, McKenna, I would think, would have gotten it, but then it could have just been like a spell of depression or whatever.
And that's it. For all I know, I mean, I don't know his personal life, or he has kids and a wife and all of this kind of stuff. He could have just been in the dumps with a personal life, and that could affect how he perceives his total philosophy.
Oh, totally, yeah. You just had a lapse in endurance,
right,
as I would call it.
Well, that's the thing too. Is like if you're really pushing a specific rap, and every day you're getting paid to, sell a point of view that you don't actually believe in to begin with. Like he's very clear since the start that he's like, I'm not a believer. He's like, these are theories that I'm postulating. These are like possible outcomes. There's no dogma here. If the minute you start having those dogmas, and the thing is, I don't want to call them lies, but you tell a lie 1,000 times and it becomes true.
Right.
It's kind of like that spiel. You tell a lie, or you tell something that you don't even really believe 1,000 times, and then you kind of trick yourself that you do believe it, but you never believed it all along. You've just tricked yourself that you believe it.
Well, yeah, and again, there's no ultimate truth, so it's all just the spinning wheel.
Yeah.
You can't convince yourself objectively of anything because what is truth?
Right.
It's impermeable. It's a word, exactly.
It's a word.
Like I've had that too. I've talked for so long, and by the end of like 2 hours worth of talking, I've stopped believing in what I was saying, and it's usually just because of the caffeine crash.
Yeah.
I'm just like, and I'm out of energy. I don't believe it anymore.
Well, it's like I was saying earlier. Every kind of feel-good statement of absolute, can be countered. The opposite is always equally true.
Right.
The slippery slope argument can go both ways. That's another way of looking at it. So, yeah, I mean, I don't get too invested in that, but people get disillusioned all the time, and there's no reason to hold that against people. You can't expect people to, hold dear to their views constantly.
Which is really weird, because society expects that.
Yes.
I find society
They will call you wishy-washy.
Right.
They will call you walking contradiction. They will call you, they'll say that Dante said the hottest seat in hell is reserved for those who can't choose sides. And that point of view has fucking stuck. You can't argue with anybody and pick the I don't pick a position. People get mad. They froth at the mouth. They're like, you have to be in one party.
Yeah, there must be permanency. It's just like, well, what if I believed it once and now I don't? And who knows?
And maybe I'll believe it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, I don't know, maybe I'll become a diehard paleo-conservative when I'm 50. Who knows?
No, it's sure like it's like expecting someone to listen to the same music all the time.
Right.
It's just not human.
Tastes change relative to the input that has shaped your brain.
Like I love tons of music, and sometimes I'll go months without listening to it, only to come back to it again because I don't. There's no way for me to know why that is.
Yeah,
it's just.
Yeah, I dig up CDs from 2005, and I pop it in, and I'm like, how the fuck did I like this? Or alternatively, like, man, I know why I like this. The other night I was listening to In the Nightside Eclipse, and then I started listening to Anthems to the Welkin at Dusk, and with Strength I Burn, and I was just like, holy shit, I remember why I fucking like this.
I did actually listen to that, not yesterday, but the night before.
It's good.
I was watching the YouTube shows.
Yeah.
Because,
live is crushing.
Yeah, the live one's wicked. He looks like such a faggot, though. It's so annoying.
Yeah, he's like Slick Rick.
And he's got the earrings and shit, and you're like, what happened to you?
He got... I don't know. I'd say he got into prog, but that kind of look doesn't come with prog. It comes with, I don't know, jazz bars, and maybe that's what it is. Maybe he started, ever since he started getting early into prog, he started hanging out in jazz bars and sucking off Kenny G or something.
I just thought he became like a dad or something, and then he's just like, no?
No, I mean, I don't think so.
He's got the dad vibe.
He just makes bad music now. It's garbage. Like, everything, all of his solo attempts are just trash, and he loves it. He thinks the people love it. They're like, yeah, 8-string guitar prog, shredding, and it's like, well, how much can you do that? Like, and then you start adding saxophones into it, and you're like, saxophones don't. I think in the 7 albums that I really liked from the last couple of years, most of them have saxophone, and it drives me fucking insane. Like, Leprous has saxophone, Isan, not that I like Isan, has saxophone, Behemoth has saxophone on the new album.
Really?
Yeah, the one song has a Kenny G fucking sax solo.
That's the one I don't listen to then.
Well, yeah. I mean,
I'm sure I heard it once briefly,
and I'm like, okay, no thank you. Tesseract has a lot of saxophone. It's just the saxophone is somehow finding its way into metal because people think it's edgy or avant-garde, and it's just lame.
Why the fuck is that?
Keep the saxophone out.
Yeah.
There's we keep it out of classical orchestras for a reason. Keep it out of metal, please.
It is just an irritating noise. There are ways to do it properly, but it's its own thing.
It's got its own time and its own place. Don't throw it into... It's like putting chocolate in tomato soup or something like that. You know?
It'd be interesting to know why they started that.
Because it has all of these associations with jazz music. And jazz music is it's avant-garde and it's edgy and it's complicated and, it has all this baggage associated with it. And they want to evoke that baggage in their music. They want to kind of hop on that intellectual music bandwagon. And it's like, well, you actually just sound like wishy-washy pieces of shit. Stop. Just make metal. Don't stop genre bending.
That's fucking brutal. That's really brutal.
Mm-hmm. It's only gonna get worse as people keep running out of ideas and have to keep making new shit.
But we'll have what's been good already.
Yeah.
That's the one solace. And it's
and every year there's good shit. Too.
And I think when I get older, I'd become like my dad, but it's just gonna be my type of music.
Right. I'm gonna be rocking Summoning when I'm 50, and people are gonna be like, my dad listens to fucking dwarf music. mining in fucking Moria and the clanging of dwarves.
And that's if shit keeps up like this, because I always just think I'm gonna end up back in some village.
Yeah.
Like, just...
Right.
Things get shitty. I'm like, I'm gonna raise sheep. I don't give a shit. You guys can go fuck yourselves.
You can have a CD player and raise sheep.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. You still probably have internet, too.
Listen, my neighbor. He does not have a radio. He cannot afford.
Fucking, she's asking me, did one of my hair extensions fall out in your car? Like, I don't know. No.
Did you find a tuft of hair in your car?
I hope not. Fucking, Jesus Christ.
As long as you don't, find hair that's not hers and be like, I found it.
Yeah, it's blonde.
Yeah.
It's like, what the fuck? Oh,
I've done that. I have literally no idea how this happened. There was a pair of like yoga pants or like girls' tights or something in my dresser drawer. God knows whose it was. I mean, there's millions of people who come to my parents' house all the time and they leave clothes in a bag or something and it winds up in a drawer in somebody's room. And, Ashley's going through my stuff and she's like, whose is this? And I'm like, I don't know. And it's like, yeah, right, you don't know. I seriously didn't know. And still to this day, she's just like, it's not enough evidence to convict you, but I've got my eye on you.
I don't get that. Like, it's because I guess that so many people are just, have nothing to do with their time. But, like, do you know how fucking much effort it takes to cheat?
Oh, especially in this day and age with fucking cell phones and Facebook and... What I don't understand is, like, back in the day, you had fucking people who could have second families.
Right, because they couldn't communicate.
Right, it's like I gotta go on a business trip, and you go and you have other kids and, like, another wife. That shit, you can't do that now. It just, if you can do that, you're like a master of, like, you should work for the CIA. You have all the covert renaissance or reconnaissance skills that you could ever need. You should be a private investigator or something.
Yeah, or like a bank robber or an assassin or a spy or something.
Yeah, it's better than having another family. You might as well just kill people and make money for a living than do that.
Yeah, well, because it's like
go for the effort.
Like my girlfriend always like thinks like she's had like a rough past and all that. And I'm like, why the fuck would you think I would do that? It's so much work. Like, I work hard to just keep you at some, like, average level
of happiness.
Yeah. And it's, if I would do that twice? No.
Minimum level of contentness.
Yeah, like...
So you won't up and leave.
Because it's this thing that Patrice O'Neill was talking about, like, how men want women, like... We don't want them in our immediate vicinity, but we just kind of, like, want them in, like, an air duct or something. Like, they're, like, there. But, like, we're alone and we can work. And they're just kind of, like, there.
So, Man Island, the principle. Yeah. You have just men on an island, and then on the weekend you fly them in.
Yeah, like, that would be ideal,
yes. Let them out and continue with society.
Because it's like I love you, and it's not a matter of love. It's not a matter of any of that. It's just like I need time to sit and get shit done,
right?
And then all of your time is just be with me and amuse me.
But I can't read books, or do anything really, for that matter. There's very little you can do with other people in terms of, you can exercise with other people, but everybody exercises at a different pace. You can, go to an art exhibit, but there's always going to be one person who's more interested than the other. You can go to a restaurant, but there's always going to be one person who's more into it than the other.
And that's always the guy.
Well, no, not necessarily.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess I'm making
Right.
Always me, I should say.
Okay, yeah. In your
Right.
in your scenario, it's yeah.
Because like appreciation requires intelligence, and it requires a specific type of intelligence.
Yeah.
Where like
Well, right. If you take me to a car show, I don't fucking know what I'm looking
right,
at.
and I don't give a shit either.
I don't give a shit because I don't know. Right? Maybe if I knew a lot about ripping apart engines and putting them back together, I might care.
Well, and the worst part is, like, I wouldn't, I'd look down on you for thinking that's interesting, but that's because I'm me, though, right?
Right,
like, because we'd be at a car show, and you'd be like, yeah, is that really what you fucking occupy your time with? Alright.
Yeah, cars. As long as it works.
Or, like, basketball games, or hockey, and it's just like, oh, did you see what Phil Kessel, or whatever the fuck it is? Like, no, I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
What, he can skate down ice fast and
Yeah.
hit a puck?
Yeah.
Why do we worship that? Fuck you. No.
Yeah, it's definitely not for me.
It's like he's a symbol of success. Why? Because you give him money, because you think it's just not, there's no warrant for it, right?
Yeah. I mean, sports are great to play. I love playing sports and doing stuff with my body, but you're paying money to go and sit and watch other people play, I couldn't give a shit.
Yeah, at that point, it's like a movie is more interesting.
The thing is, though, like, I'm interested in... So I'm a musician, I play music, I like to see other musicians play music. And I don't know if some people get the same thrill from seeing a dude clobber another dude that I get from watching, I don't know, John Petrucci rip a solo.
But the weird thing about that comparison is that even the people that like watching like sports or whatever still like music, and they get the same thrill from music. Whereas it's like I've been to a number of like soccer games.
Well, everybody has. Yeah, I've been to hockey games and soccer games.
And it's just one of those things where it's not, music is its own thing. It's very it's satisfying, almost like eating food. Mm-hmm. Whereas hockey games really aren't.
Yeah, but maybe they are to some people. I mean, surely they are to some people. Just not to you or I. Yeah. You know what else I can't get into? Superhero movies. People... I thought I was kind of like in the majority in hating superhero movies. I thought that it was like a normal thing. But like, I remember I shit-talked the Avengers at school, and people were like, dude, what the fuck is wrong with you? They looked at me like I was an alien, and I'm like, that movie sucked. How do you watch that?
No, yeah, it's
superhero movies suck.
It's because the concepts of the superheroes aren't good concepts for superheroes.
Like, they're good for comics.
Yeah.
They're good for, like, they're not good for live action shit.
So this guy is an archer and he can shoot bows really well, and that's his whole character. And it's just like, why is that satisfying to you? Like, or Superman's really strong and he can like.
Superman's the lamest of all superheroes.
Yeah, and it's just, and like I can kind of see like Batman, because they tried with him. They're like, he's like,
well, the Greeks
dynamic.
So like, Superman is Heracles and Batman is Odysseus, right? Like everybody likes Odysseus more than Heracles, but even Heracles is dumb. Superman's not dumb. Superman's fucking, like, alien smart. So he has no flaw other than the fact that this rock from the planet that he's from will kill him, but everybody has that rock, so... So somehow Superman is, like, now brought down to the level of every other hero because everybody has a piece of kryptonite. But people are much more interested in Batman as a like a trickster and like a tool wielder, and because he's just a person, he's a regular human being. There's a lot more relatability in someone like Batman than a Superman. Fuck Superman.
Yeah, well, yeah, like I guess that makes sense, but it's not even necessarily that Hercules was dumb. He's just from his own age.
He's dumb.
Yeah,
He's pretty dumb. Yeah, he kills his own family. I mean, that's how the labors start, right? He goes mad because Hera drives him mad. I mean, he probably would have gone mad no matter what.
Yeah, it's Hera.
Yeah,
she's a god.
Yeah, goddess madness. And he strangles his family and kills them all, and then has to redeem himself. So he goes on the 12 labors.
But that doesn't make him as dumb as it just makes him tragic.
Right.
Because it's like, again, if a god comes and does it, it doesn't matter what kind of faculty you have as a mortal, you're still not getting to win.
I mean, and that is the kind of point that's explored by the tragedy, like Heracles mad and those kinds of things. It's like, the gods get involved. Well, that's just kind of your lot. But the gods told me that it'd be fine. And it's like, well, they lied.
I like the thing that Karen Armstrong says about him, and he's like he's the fragment from the hunter-gatherer civilizations.
Heracles?
Yeah. Because he's got the club, he's got the cape, he's very primitive, right?
Yeah, he's African.
Right.
He's not Greek. He doesn't speak Greek. He gets turned away from the Eleusinian mysteries because you have to be able to speak Greek and you can not be a murderer. And I'm pretty sure he's both.
Yeah, and that's where that comes from, right? So he's like the hunter-gatherer remnant entering the agrarian civilizations.
Yeah.
And then they all go, well, you're not like we are, you're totally different. But that is its own strength, right?
Yeah.
That's why he's remembered as that like legendary fragment of who we are that we trace our lineage to.
Yeah. He's also the sun. That's the thing, the 12 labors are the 12 signs of the zodiac. And he, the Heracles, the glory of Hera, goes like the sun through the 12 signs of the zodiac and returns once again. That there's a total astrotheology element of that story, which I can't elucidate more than that, but pretty sure Manly P. Hall has a good thing on it.
Right. Well, that makes sense too because Hera's the mother goddess.
Yeah. And the glory of the mother goddess is always the dying and rising sun.
Right. Yeah.
Attis, Dionysus, Zagreus, Osiris, all these people.
Yeah, the circle of fertility and all of that.
Yeah, and like crucifixion and those things are celestial events that happen when certain planets line up. Because you have the pole that transects the heavens, and then when you're in mid-center with all of the planets arranged in a certain order, that is the quote-unquote crucifixion.
Right.
There are kind of graphic models you can find on the internet that explain it fairly clearly.
I'll have to look into those.
Yeah.
Like, his pictures always fucking are awesome.
Well, the pictures help. I think Manly P. Hall in the astrotheology lecture series, that 9-hour one that is all in one file or something.
I could probably do that one in 2 days. I started it a long time ago.
That great.
I finished it.
The problem is that you have to separate the wheat from the chaff actively as you're going because you're like, this is so old.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
like people haven't believed this since the 40s. It's like your old grandpa who's set in his ways, and he's just like, "This is the way things are." Manly P. Hall's the shit.
And the other thing I liked about the Karen Armstrong thing was she said the three Greek goddesses, Hera, Artemis, and
At the Judgment of Paris,
Aphrodite. No, well, they are like the mother goddess.
Yeah.
Separated into
the maiden. What is it? Maiden matron, and crone
Right.
is the threefold aspect of the goddess. And there are, so like Hecate has three faces, and she's the like lunar goddess. But all the goddesses, have that threefold maiden, mother, and crone tripartite division of womanhood. And they each represent something. Even in the Eleusinian myth, you have maiden, Kore, mother, Demeter, and then Bao Bao, or whatever, not Bao Bao, I forget what the name is exactly, but there's a crone character in the story where Kore gets abducted down to Hades, and Demeter goes wandering looking for her. She comes to the house of this crone, and there you have the kind of themes of that trifold division. And gods, too. I mean, you have chthonic Hades, who is a chthonic aspect of Zeus. You have Poseidon, who is the watery Zeus, and then you have the sky Zeus. And they're each technically the same person.
Right, right.
But they've been divided. I wonder, probably not. I mean, there's I think it's Claude Levi-Strauss has this whole thing about Indo-Europeans and the tripartite division of society into priests, warriors, and farmers. But then he gets really kind of up his own ass and says that everything is divided into three. And
I mean, technically you could.
And then there's these evocations of the Trinity, and then you're like, okay, well, this is like 5,000 years later. Don't use that. And they're not even Indo-European. The people who invented the Trinity.
Well, yeah, but I mean, technically you could divide anything into any number of parts that you want.
Exactly.
It's very easy.
Exactly. So I could probably write a paper saying he was wrong. It's a fivefold division, and here's how it works, and see how everything is divided into fives.
Yeah, and like that whole thing that everything's a part of everything else, anyways.
Right.
So
if you name it,
let's
it becomes
play
a
that
part.
game. Yeah.
There should be a school of thought that's just like the multi-million part. Like there's more parts than you could ever possibly imagine.
Although I think the reason that it's the three because it's the three stages of life.
There's you could do it with anything, but you can also say there's four. I mean, we use seasons, right? You said the autumn of our years, or I was in the winter of my life. Any arbitrary division.
Well, I was just thinking like birth, life, death.
Yeah.
And that's your...
But is not birth just life?
Yes.
And is not death the absence of life? So we have a binary system then. It's just it's all arbitrary. I mean, if you want to.
I'm just, I'm trying to think of it from the perspective of like an agrarian villager, right?
Yeah.
Who's just like, why divide it into three? I don't know, there's three parts to life.
Yeah.
Birth, life, death. There you go, that's your three.
Yeah. Well, probably one of the biggest threefold things is the heaven, earth, underworld.
Right.
Yggdrasil. That is one of the most dominant themes in at least mythological consciousness, is that the world, or the cosmos rather, is divided into threefold. And I mean, to me, all that means is there is life, there is good tripping, and there is bad tripping.
Yeah, essentially.
And kingdom of heaven on earth, or this and that. There's good tripping, and there's shit tripping.
Although it's weird too, because so heaven, earth, and the underworld, again, birth, life, death.
Right.
You come from God who lives in the sky. You get sent down to earth to live. You leave to the underworld to die.
Or, alternatively, if you're a Gnostic, you come out of the earth. You live I mean, you come out of the chthonic portion
Right.
of Earth, you live on Earth, and then you return to heaven. Yeah. Who knows?
Well, yeah, because and again, it's bound by because you said Yggdrasil, so
Yeah.
it's bound by Jormungandr,
Yeah.
the world serpent, who
Yeah,
spins it all.
Or the Kundalini, I mean,
Right.
the spine that links the underworld to the heaven, propped up by your spine. Indo-European comparative mythology is really fascinating.
It's fun too. I love that
Yeah.
shit. It's
Yeah.
so like, 'cause
Seeing
there's-
parallels between India and Vikings thousands of years apart, and they're not like terribly forced parallels either. I mean, a little bit of forcing, but not that much.
Well, yeah, because it just comes and that again is I would say even more due to language disparity than
I mean,
concept.
common ancestry split apart by oral tradition variations over time. 5,000 years of oral tradition will tend to distort things a little bit.
See, this one's an hour and 11.